You're now experiencing the Gretna Phil Show.
Hey, hi everybody. Thanks for tuning in. So, once again, we left the Shire and we came up here to Lewisburg. And we're attending the unpaved expo and gravel grind. Today we're going to enjoy the expo a little bit, and tomorrow we're gonna gravel grind. So we're going to get Dave Pryor over here, DP. He's one of the promoters. Mike Coon, the Coon Dog, one of the promoters, is going to be here. Usual co-host Todd is somewhere. He's going to be here soon. And oh, hey, we ran into Mike Yozell. Hey, Mike, say hi. You're on the Gretna Phil Show.
Morning. Nice to see y'all.
Yeah, we just rolled into talking about God's country, and it was so ironic because we talked about it last night. What year do you think that was roughly, or the year that we were just talking about the lineup?
Probably 94, summer 94, maybe 95.
And you were lining up on there.
Mm-hmm.
And who was in that lineup with you?
I mean, at that point, it was the heyday of the original Mid-Atlantic Super Series. So it would have been David Duval, Roger Bird, definitely Floyd Landis. I remember him showing up with a pocket full of Hershey's Kisses. That was kind of fun. Anybody want some chocolate? I don't think Gunnar Shogun was there. I don't think he made it up. Fergie, Mark Podursky, Jamie Footy.
Footy.
Yep. So those guys, definitely. Stephen Kincaid, Geronimo was there. Yeah, it was a good race.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's sort of an all-star cast. End of the season, September, so everybody's flying. Yeah.
Did you see Floyd? Only at the end?
I saw him at the beginning. I watched his tailpipe disappear up the road on that downhill start, and then he was gone. I think he beat us by like 10 or 11 minutes. He was, I mean, there was no comparison.
And then it was you and Kincaid, right, battling for second, like 10 minutes back or something?
I think so, if my memory serves. I'm sure it's written down somewhere, but definitely had a good battle with Stefan that year. Yeah, he's fun to race with. So.
Yo, Todd, roll that over here.
There's a classic brand.
Yeah, thank you. So one of the things we wanted to talk about today, and as a lead into the Philly Bike Expo coming up November 2nd and 3rd, we wanted to talk about the evolution of a gravel bike. And so we have three bikes here, and we have a cyclocross bike, and we have a 2x11 gravel bike, and then we have another gravel bike that's 1x11. So, we ran into Mike. It was perfect timing because we wanted to talk about kind of the evolution of it. Mike was making a point earlier that it's more of a cultural thing than it is necessarily an equipment thing. And so, how about expounding on that a little bit? Because that really made sense to me.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, I think what we were talking about is that, like other cycling disciplines, we've seen rises and falls. So mountain biking was huge, 90s into the early 2000s, and we saw the fall off from that. But the adventure and the excitement of getting out, getting into some backcountry where you wouldn't necessarily have gotten on a road bike was there. And then all of a sudden cyclocross was huge. Everybody had 2 or 3 bikes, and it was races every weekend. And you saw that sort of start to wane around 2012 or so, just as gravel was coming up. And I think in a way that it's a combination of both. It's the excitement of being out there somewhere where you wouldn't necessarily be, and on a road bike or even on a mountain bike, and the ability to go in a combination of places that both those bikes would take you, and now all of a sudden it's a thing. So we've seen bikes evolve on the gravel side from road bikes that would take 25s or 28s to road bikes and in a loose fashion that will take 40s and bigger tires and that type of stuff. Culturally, it's just that ability to get out there and get lost, and people love that. The adventure, seeing places that they wouldn't necessarily see on one bike or the other, and having the ability to get out there and do it. Does that make kind of sense to you?
Yeah, and it's also kind of a synergy between those people that didn't really like road biking or whatever, maybe did a little cross racing, but they were primarily mountain bikers. And then there was the road bikers that kind of were interested in mountain biking but never really full on mountain bike, and all of a sudden there's that nexus of the two universes that's come together, and that's kind of lended to the momentum at the moment. So some interesting differences here. So when we go over here and we look at a pure cyclocross bike, Mike,
Yeah, sure.
First of all, it's probably going to have a little bit of a higher bottom bracket for the off-camber stuff.
Yep.
And it's going to be a little bit of a steeper head angle.
Agreed.
So because you're going quick turns and whatnot. And the off-camber things that you go across, you want to keep that bottom bracket up so you can do that well. And you can see the gearing is not like it is on a on a Mondo gravel bike? I mean, you're probably running a, what is that on the back, an 1125?
1128 on this one, and then a 3644 up front. So, you know, fairly steep gearing. Not going to get you up really steep, loose gravel climbs, because if you're on a cyclocross bike and you can't ride up it, you should be running.
So that brings us to a gravel bike. You say, well, I need some things for graveling. I need obviously as much tire clearance as I can get, and I kind of want to bring that bottom bracket down a little bit more and extend the wheelbase a little bit more for more of a smoother ride.
Yep.
Also, the other thing you'll notice is bike packing is another word that goes with gravel.
Absolutely.
Would you agree?
Yep.
And so look here, you have bosses here. You have them here, and so and you have them here, and the purpose is to put racks on and different pack assemblies. So what are differences from a mechanical standpoint of the road bike to a cross bike to almost back to a gravel bike?
Yeah, I think, historically we would have called them rando bikes way back in the day. Big, long distance rides, fatter tires, maybe smaller diameter wheels, which we're seeing again, so 650B wheels and stuff like that. Fast forward 40 or 50 years, nobody's in this country is really doing randos, though they are still popular throughout the world. Let's move to the cross bike just for a second. So as Bill said, higher bottom bracket, steeper angles, tighter wheelbase, nimble, fast, quick, light. Let's let that fall over. And a bike that's really just made for going fast for 45 to 60 minutes. Jump over here, you've got something like the Warbird from Salsa. And what you're seeing is an evolutionary thing. Bottom brackets were starting to drop. Chainstays were dropping so you could fit, wider range gearing, small inner rings, larger outer rings, bigger cassettes, huge amounts of tire clearance, and then as Bill mentioned, a plethora of bosses so that you can put bags of all sorts on. For most of us going out on a 1, 2, 3, 4 hour jaunt, you're going to get some kind of lunchbox or something like that here, maybe an extra bottle cage underneath. But beyond the carrying capacity, wheelbase is lengthened, bottom brackets dropped. Both of those speak to stability on loose, undulating terrain at higher speed. So you think about your dirt and gravel roads that we're all finding in the backwoods these days, you're going to be much more stable on this bike. Head tubes might be a little bit taller, so you're a little bit more upright, a little bit more comfortable, but you can still hit the drops on the handlebars because it's a hooked bar like on a road bike, so you can drop your center of gravity and get really stable on those fast downhills as well.
And to that point, you see on this Brera, Guerciotti Brera, you can see that we flared out the bottom bar a little bit for even a little bit more stability.
Yeah, so let me turn this so the folks watching on the internet can see it. What he's talking about, thank you, and I'll put my coffee down. Hand positions are paramount with drop bars. You've got the hooks, you've got the tops, you've got, or the hoods rather, and then the tops. Adding this flare to it puts your wrists in a little bit more comfortable position. It lets you get your elbows out a little bit so that you're not locked into a road racer's position. Drops have become a little bit shallower so you can get down there a little quicker and drop your center of gravity and be more stable. And that's another morphing of what was a traditional road or rando bike into what today's gravel bikes are. I think we're going to see some more evolution as time goes on, but you can sort of see that evolution here with these three bikes.
And still, when this baby hits the macadam or the tarmac, it's fast. It's as fast as a road bike.
Sure, yeah. I mean, and part of that is what we're seeing with a lot of the tires, both the Warbird and the Brera. They have a tire that's aggressive. If we can come in on that for a second. Thanks. So you've got an aggressive knob pattern, good shoulder knobs for cornering on loose terrain, whether it's wet or dry. But then in the middle, you've got very tightly linked, ridged knobs. So when you are on the pavement, you've got some efficiency. You're not fighting the squirm of the knobs. You're actually sitting on something that's a little bit more geared towards just going in a straight line on the macadam. So
we get a lot of guys. We were talking about that nexus of the mountain bike community and the road bike community, and so guys that wouldn't even consider getting a road bike are saying, you know what, I think I want a gravel bike, but can I ride it on the road? And I'm like, most definitely. I saw a segment on Global Cycling Network a few weeks back where they just said all you really need, and they compared them, was just another wheel set if you really wanted to get. I mean, you can change your tires, obviously, but with tubeless, that's kind of a hassle.
Yeah.
So, they talked about you just get another wheel set, and basically you have a road bike. So,
or even just a pair of tires.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, just switch them off depending on the season.
But that takes us back to culture, you know, and some peer pressure
segue,
what we were talking about a little bit. And a lot of us are just bike geeks and we like equipment. So, you know, there's a good market for used stuff. People will sell stuff off and get something new. You know, I brought the bike that I had assembled today for me to ride. Is it ideal? No. Will it get the job done? Sure. But so there's a little bit of that sometimes. It's like you show up and all your friends have proper gravel bikes. You show up on a cross bike and it's, what am I doing wrong?
That's exactly why I have this bike. I got guilted into it, basically.
So there's a little bit of that. But what it really comes back to, I think, culturally is that for years and years, the model that we were seeing was pro road racing. And as we've gotten away from that over the last 10, 15 years, and people have been opened up and introduced to riding away from traffic, which is getting arguably much busier and much harder to navigate with bigger vehicles out there and distracted drivers, and they want an escape from that. All of a sudden, this is great. And I worked in shops since I was 11 years old, and we've always kind of, in the shops that I've been in, espoused ride the biggest tires that you can. It's going to be more comfortable. And now we're seeing that come into a greater amount of riders overall. It's not pigeonholing anymore. It's like, I don't need a 23 millimeter tire on a proper, you know, I'm using that term too much, but on a, you know, on a pro road race bike. 9 times out of 10, this is the perfect bike for somebody to get out on because they can go anywhere. You can ride single track, you can ride dirt roads, you can ride it to the swimming hole with your kid. You could commute on it all winter long because you can add fenders. You could bike tour on it, or, you know, bike pack now is the vernacular. I could ride cross country on this, and it just allows you to get anywhere that you would want to go. So it's
you
really
remember
cool.
Racing at Camp Mac, so we went over there, and we used to always go down Obie Road and Pumping Station Road, and we just skip Camp Mac, right? Because, well, that's where we learned mountain biking.
Right.
And in the day on a 26-inch hardtail, we got to get front suspension.
Yeah.
We can't ride this.
Yep.
And then we had to get full suspension. And then all of a sudden the other year or whatever, we're like, let's just go up into Camp Mac off of Obie Road there. And we were riding the single track. I mean, sure, we had to dab a couple of places, but for the most part, we were fine.
But all you did too there in that respect is improve your skills.
Right.
Correct.
You became a better rider because you weren't pigeonholed to staying on macadam or staying on a mountain bike on mountain bike trails. You were learning a whole new skill set.
Even that single track expertise or acumen that we had learned from riding a hardtail all of a sudden became pertinent again.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, like, tubeless really helps a lot, and lightweight wheels, and the casings of the tires, they really roll a lot better. So you can get away with a 28C on a pro road bike. And,
Sure.
And but yeah, to your point.
Yeah. Well, you know, I mean, trending, whether it's pro road bike or not, we're starting to see bigger tires across the board. You know, there's people like the folks at Zip and some of the other manufacturers, and certainly Josh over at Silca doing testing on bigger tires, and all the pro road teams looking at that type of stuff. And in a lot of cases, a bigger tire with a little bit less pressure, depending on where you're riding, is going to be smoother, and smoother is faster. And more forgiving, and you're going to feel better on Monday morning for scrubs like us, and for the pro guys, are just going to go faster.
Yeah. Just a quick, I want to ask you this, because we've been kicking this around. All right, let's look at a 1x11 and a 2x11.
Yep.
And you say, why can't you put a big rear cassette on a 2x? All right, now, my general thought process tells me that you're going to have way bigger of a chain, and you better not cross chain, because if you put a 2x on a big cassette like that, the chain's got to be pretty big to cover that. So conversely, if you're on the small ring, if you have a 2x with that longer chain and you're on the small in the back, that's just, it's going to...
Yeah, you know,
Now you would say that a clutch derailleur would take that up, but he really doesn't shift well on if you have the clutch derailleur on.
the clutch derailleur is really just going to keep the chain from bouncing around. That's the sole purpose of that clutch, is to keep the chain from coming off. Whether it's a 2x, there's a clutch derailleur on my cross bike now, which is new from Shimano this year, or last. But I think the bigger thing is that you with a single ring setup or a double ring setup, you're looking to get the most efficient drivetrain that you can and get, you know, the highest end and the lowest end to be where you want them to,
without a lot of shifting.
without a lot of duplicate gears. So what we're going to see though is 1x drivetrains for gravel bikes come up probably within the next season or two to what SRAM is calling Eagle. So that 50 or Shimano's
Yeah, that's what I like.
Dynasis
Even a
up to
12, a
51.
1x12
Yeah,
with
so,
a 10x50.
so
in
we're
the
going to
back.
start seeing that more and more. And then you've got the range with a single ring up front. It's simpler. We've said this for years too. You know, it's like front shifting is confusing to a lot of riders. So eliminating it, you know, and just going to that single ring makes it much simpler to ride the bike. One derailleur to control, 2 brakes to control, and then it's just pedal. So I think, in a way, with the gravel stuff, it's almost until we see those wider range cassettes, 2x is still a viable drivetrain. You know, you get
Hence GRX by Shimano.
hence GRX by Shimano. That you can get that in a 1 or a 2. Hex, you know, hence SRAM's drivetrains. Praxis is now doing cranks with 32 and 34 toothed inner rings, and 46, 50-ish outer rings. So you've got a huge wide gear spread. So you're out on the road with your group, or you've tagged onto a group at the end of coming off some dirt roads, and you're just trying to get back to town, you know, fast and hang. Those 2x systems are going to give you that high end that you're really still looking for.
Yeah.
But when you drop into that 32 tooth inner ring, and you know you've got a 42 tooth, you know, low gear on the cassette, you can scale pretty much anything.
Exactly. It's better than 1-to-1, and you need it sometimes.
Yeah. I think going less than 1-to-1 is actually advantageous. But you know, I think equipment's personal. You know, you run what you brung.
Yeah.
And then B, you know, when you're thinking it through, think about where you're going to ride, how you're going to ride, and what's going to be the best tool for the job, and then get good advice from your local shop or your local mechanic, and you know, hopefully you come up with something that really works well.
Right on, man.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mike.
My
That's
pleasure.
Great talk, man.
Yeah,
Great
nice
running
to
into
see you, Bill.
Yeah,
glad,
for sure.
Glad we bumped into each other.
Thanks, guys.